We are back on Inside Politics. Our guest today, Gini Pupo-Walker, an outgoing member of the Metro School Board, talking about education issues. Gini, I almost hate to bring this topic up, but the pandemic has not gone, it's not over, but most everybody is kind of like over it. And when you mention the words, their ears close. If it comes back, are we ready in the schools to take it? Because nobody's going to want to put masks on, and then most people still don't even want to get shots in this state.
You know, I think we know a lot more than we did 3 years ago about how to keep sort of contact trace, directions for students, directions for families, vaccines. We have just a lot more at our disposal. I think it'll be interesting to see if we do have waves, how it will impact schools, but I don't suspect we'll ever close again, and I'd be surprised if we had mask mandates again unless it gets really, really bad.
We have lots of curriculum controversies. There are more people running for school board. They're still concerned that this whole situation with teaching things like critical race theory in schools, even though that's usually a college level, it's not even taught anywhere in Tennessee that I know of. These misinformation campaigns, there seems to be nothing to do to stop them. So it's just something you got to deal with. You got the same thing going on, I think, to some degree with library books and textbooks. But there you may actually see things being banned as we go forward, because there have been things put in place on the state level that can be kind of frightening depending on what kind of things get banned.
It's very alarming. You know, it's a manufactured crisis. I think, you know, CRT's not been taught, never been taught in K-12 schools in Tennessee, never had a single complaint about it. I think the vilification of librarians and of teachers and this assumption that somehow they're up to no good and teaching content and indoctrinating students is so harmful. I mean, polls across the country year upon year say that Americans love their local schools, they love their local teachers and coaches and their community schools, and to somehow insinuate that our teachers and librarians are somehow up to no good is so damaging to the fabric of public education.
Let's talk about the voucher program. It starts as a trial basis both in Memphis and Nashville. This has been in and out of the courts. It's back in the courts, even though it's now underway again after a court ruling by the Supreme Court. Changing schools for any parent with their students is always a difficult time, difficult for them, difficult for the children. Yet Metro and Memphis are back with the state in court arguing about this issue again. Is that a good idea at the beginning of the school year? I mean, it seems awfully disruptive.
You know, this is a tough one. I mean, I can talk for a long time about how there is no evidence to show that ESAs and vouchers are positive, education savings accounts, ESAs are positive for low-income students. There's not a net gain to be seen. This particular voucher program is problematic for a number of reasons. And so, no, yeah, obviously it would pull school money from our public school system, but it also is not really benefiting students who need the most.
The state's also implementing a new K-12 funding formula. It does for the first time recognize that poverty is a problem, that English language learning is a problem. Are you puzzled why Nashville's not getting more money out of that? I mean, you see more of it going in terms of the percentage increase going out in the rural areas. Not that there's not poverty and problems out there, but Nashville and urban areas seem to have that problem. Is there something funny about this formula that doesn't seem to quite add up?
There is not. It is a formula, and the way the formula is built, part of our funding comes from the state, part of it comes from local revenue. Nashville makes a lot of money, and so we have a larger share of percentage of funding that needs to come from us than, say, a rural distressed county. And so
the more we fund our schools, the more we penalize ourselves in getting state aid.
The more money we make in Nashville, the more the state picks up less of the tab, because we have more what we call local fiscal capacity. But I think the other issue is we certainly have many students that are from low-income backgrounds. The problem is how we define it for the purposes of this formula. We define it as students who are enrolled in WIC or TANF or SNAP. If a student's not enrolled in food programs, they don't qualify. They don't count as low income. So right now, only 37% of our students are enrolled in those programs, when I suspect more like 70% are low income.
Well, in this fight over LGBT rights, we may have problems even having the federal programs in the state, because those are right now in courts being, and if the feds lose, they're kind of saying they might just cut Tennessee off from getting that kind of money. That would be disastrous.
It would be terrible. It would be terrible. And I'd be surprised if that actually played out that way. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars for our public schools. But that is another divisive topic, a manufactured crisis that I think really stigmatizes children and families.
Are schools ever going to be non-political again? It just seems like every time we talk about this, there's one new issue that's come up and everything has become so weaponized.
I want us to remember that in 1957, Hattie Cotton Elementary School was bombed over segregation and desegregation. We have had divisive, toxic education debates for decades.
And when busing started in the late 60s, it was very divisive.
I mean, it was incredibly divisive. We had No Child Left Behind and testing and pay for performance in Tennessee, very divisive, charters. I think there's always going to be a back and forth. I think it comes down to leadership at the state level to really build consensus.
Do you find it liberating in some ways to be coming off the school board? Maybe you can do and say some things that as a school board member you had to be a little bit more guarded about?
Absolutely, absolutely. It is liberating. I'll always be involved. I'll always be speaking out. I'll just do it in a different way.
Okay. So you're optimistic about the future, what's going on with the new school board? You see great things ahead?
Absolutely think the combination of this incoming board with Dr. Adrienne Battle, I think really good things are ahead.
And the school board gave her a new contract before the election. That was a risk. Had the election gone the other way, there might have been an effort to change that contract.
That's correct. Yep.
Gini Pupo-Walker, thank you so much for being on the program. I also appreciate you joining us on Thursday night with our election coverage, because it was very helpful and insightful, although unfortunately while you were here we didn't get, because of the delay at the polls, getting the vote counted, and because people were standing in line late, you got to leave before we found out any of the numbers that came in there.
Yep, it's always good to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I'll try to have you back again in the future to talk about education issues.
Sounds great.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. We'll be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, you can go to the News website. You'll find my Capital New Commentary there. The new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.